Hello to everybody from the XX Network. This is Aaron Wellwood, also known as CryptoWell. Today I'll be hosting the December session of the XX Network Council meeting. For this meeting agenda, we have approximately 40 minutes in total, but chances are we're going to go over a bit given how much information is coming out today. So for this first slide, I'm going to hand it over to Will Carter from the XX Foundation. Will, you can go ahead when you're ready.
As many of you may have noticed, the entire tech space is reeling a bit right now, and we are well into a crypto winter. So our space is struggling quite a bit, and a lot of projects in the space are struggling quite a bit. But I do want to say that while things are tough right now and sentiment is low, we are in an amazing position as a project. So we're experiencing basically a once-in-a-decade opportunity of disruption in a lot of the established major platforms on the internet right now. And we've come to a point where users have come to realize that this centralized control and lack of privacy in their online services just are not acceptable. Reaching this viewpoint as a society has literally taken decades. And I know David can speak to that personally, but it has not been easy to get mainstream sentiment to come to this point. And we didn't have to bring them here. They've kind of realized it on their own. And so here we are with powerful, unique technology that is at the center of addressing these issues. So we have the most private, decentralized communications platform in the world. It's running, it's tested, and we're building apps on it. So while we've had to pivot our strategy and priorities a few times over the last 6 months in response to the market, we think that the best thing we can do right now with our limited resources in this market is to really drive adoption of the technology. Yeah, so this technology has finally become, I think, mature and is basically ready to start shipping out to a lot of other platforms, products, and applications out in the world. We started testing the XXDK with the XX Messenger, as you all know, which is not only decentralized, but it's the only quantum secure metadata protecting communications tool in the world. And while we were building it, we improved the XXDK. We recognized some additional needs that we needed to implement within the XXDK to take it away from a pure mobile approach in a lot of ways, thanks to App Store restrictions and kind of like the ecosystem of Web3 really being web-based rather than mobile-based. And so we've really focused on making CMix available now to any web platform. So that was a huge step in making the technology more mature and more adoptable. Now that we've done this, we're finally ready to productize CMix and get it in the hands of other developers. A first phase of this, where we're really putting CMix out into the world, or the technology out into the world, is Project Tourbillon, which is using XX Network's tech approaches to build a performance CBDC with functional privacy. And with that validation and experience that's being gained from this project and this integration, we can really reach a much broader developer audience. And I think that's kind of what David and Jim have been doing for the past month. Really flying around the world, forming relationships, kind of putting the first pieces of the puzzle in place to getting this technology into the hands of others, which I hope they can talk about a little bit later in this call. But we're also, bringing in this kind of pivot to really focusing on adoption as our priority at the foundation. We're also bringing in a new team member to drive that process. His name's Samir Bendali. He's worked with us in the past. He's really a biz dev badass. He knows quite a few people in this space. He's very well connected. Samir, do you want to give a short introduction?
Sure. Hey guys, really nice to meet everybody. This is my first council meeting, but like Will said, I've been working with the XX Network for about 1.5 years now, helping for kind of growth and fundraising. I'll give you guys a quick background of myself just so you can get to know me a little bit. I've been in the crypto space since early 2015. I started out in e-commerce with a focus on wallets and payments. I was running a platform that supported over 1,000 cryptos and 15 different fiat currencies, and we operated successfully in over 150 countries across the world. I migrated to the Cayman Islands in 2018 and started a new business that was focused on the intersection of Web3 and social messaging. So my experience is actually quite relevant towards what XX is trying to accomplish. We were focused primarily on connecting existing crypto and blockchain to chat platforms like WhatsApp, Telegram, and Discord. And more recently, I've been looking to get back into the blockchain-based side of the tech industry, and this opportunity opened up. So I'm really excited to be here with you guys, and I think I have a lot I can bring to the table, and I'm looking forward to sharing that with you over the coming months.
Thanks, Samir. So yeah, before I go on, I did want to say that I have, as some of you may have seen, I've moved back from a full-time role at the XX Foundation, given this kind of pivot away from short-term tech development and more towards biz dev and growth. There is a resource allocation aspect to it, in that we really do want to shift a lot of resources to, allowing Samir and, a biz dev and growth team to really take the reins and start driving adoption of the network. But it's also kind of about creating a culture pivot, and making sure that we don't remain primarily a tech-driven organization, that we really do focus on making this stuff usable and setting up good partnerships throughout the ecosystem. So while I am stepping away from a full-time role, I'm still going to be spending a great deal of time working on the XX network. I'm still on the board of the foundation. I'll still be working at the foundation, helping Samir, helping drive adoption, partnerships, and development. So I think a lot of people had said, "Oh, we're losing Will." You guys are not losing me. I am going to be working on another project, more than half time, but I'm also going to be spending a lot of time here at XX Network. And there's a lot of cross-pollination that can actually happen there. I've met quite a few organizations and partners currently in the relationship with Lamina One that are all looking, these are household name tech companies that are all looking for decentralized social media and communication solutions, given what's happening in the space. And I'm hoping to bring all of them over to the XX Network.
Okay, great. Up next is Ben Wenger from Elixxir.
Thank you, Will. I just wanted to say, just following up on, well, I know it's not on my slide, that in my experience, internal changes are often the precipice for external success. I'm very excited for Samir, and I think that we're on a really great path. That being said, talk about the tech team. So our priority of the past few months, as we mentioned in the JavaScript XDK, which we've been successful at, with the exception of HTTPS 2 and TLS is not yet live. I believe the deployment will be next week unless we run into any problems. It's been a particularly difficult thing. This is critical for mass deployment of CMix. And it's actually a remarkably difficult challenge. The browser and internet infrastructure was not designed for a decentralized world. Getting it working in that requires fairly monumental efforts. By comparison, from a technical standpoint, getting this working is probably one of the most difficult things we've done in the past few years. But we've got it test working. In fact, it's technically already working on mainnet. We have yesterday and today tests running on the XX West node, running the new code with custom deployment speakeasy talking to it. And it seems like we've cracked the nut. So,
hey, Ben.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. This is Jim. I just wanted to underscore what Will kind of tipped his hat towards, which is that we released apps. That goes back to David's fundamental vision, 4 or 5 years ago, that this would be consumer focused. We would have apps. It would be easy to use. But part of the work that we're dealing with now is that apps have app stores as gatekeepers. So there's a real technical challenge to ducking that, and it's a big deal, and it's necessary to not have us be controlled by Apple and Google.
Yes. One of the many reasons we focus so much on the JavaScript XDK. The other reason, of course, is Web3, as Will mentioned, is primarily a browser-based world. And as you're going to see through the rest of what I'm going to talk about, a huge number of options have opened up to us simply by running in a browser, which connects to the next one. So payment integration XX Network, we have the cryptography and comms layers written, but we paused that work because it turns out that for the exact reason I just mentioned, it's next to trivial to get it working within Speakeasy in the browser world because there's robust support for it for many other projects. Just to preview, we're going to see that this month through a different mechanism than we initially proposed. And then the centralized account backup with Crust will launch this month as well. We've got it working. It's just in final polishing right now. Okay. Other priorities mentioned was upgrade to CTIDE. This has been done. We worked with a third party to get CTIDE running on the phones, and that is working. And we actually have it integrated in a branch. We're working on the test deployment, upgrading that during payments integration. Aaron, do you mind going back one? So for payments integration, we've got the cryptography and comms layers written and done, but we've paused work on it because we think that we can better allocate resources to other things because of how we've got xxCK running within WASM, within JavaScript. It's actually trivial to integrate other projects. So we're going to see payments within Speakeasy, I believe this month, almost certainly. And with a fraction the effort that's going to take to get into XX Messenger. So we're really moving towards kind of the direction most of the industry is in, which is doing things like this very, very easy. And then I don't know if I cut off for it, so I'll just say it. The centralized account backup with Crust is just about done. We're in final polishing and we'll launch this month as well. For the C-Tide, that stuff is just about complete. We worked with an outside party in order to get that to happen, and we now have that code running on the phones. This upgrades the quantum security. We're in the process of figuring out how to properly manage the upgrade from the old to the new, which is difficult. So more on that to come. But new deployments to XXDK, I believe already or very close to already will use C-Tide, with the exception of within WASM, we still need some work there to get it working on web browsers. And then we're continuing to support dApps and work on partnerships. We've got a group that I talked about that I'm very excited about, not yet able to give their name, but I think that we're getting some real interest. And so I'm going to talk about codename Speakeasy specifically. So as people know, it released. As I mentioned, HTTP TLS is almost ready. It's this month, probably next week. Once of HTTP TLS notifications is trivial or pretty close to it, so that will come. And then the admin controls and commands, I'm hoping this month, if not early January. We've got the crypto for that done. The roadblock actually is that this week we had kind of an epiphany on a way to tweak the design so that one of its flaws is mitigated, specifically that banning users would expire automatically after 3 weeks. Now that won't happen. So we think that figuring out how to make that work within our architecture is valuable enough that it's worth a short delay to include it. And as I mentioned, we think we're going to have payments in Speakeasy this month. It is, as far as we can tell, next trivial to get integrated. I'm going to talk about the medium term for codename Speakeasy. So we've got disappearing messages. That actually, the first launch was technically there, but the front end didn't have it. So we'll bring that in. Direct messaging, actually, Rick Carback has been the lead on that. We have a new direct messaging architecture. It will eventually use the same quantum secure communications within the XX messenger as an option, but this architecture allows direct messages to be trivially multi-device, which I think is really important for the Speakeasy platform. File transfer, as I've mentioned, we've not put much work on it. It's still waiting for an engineer to have time for it, but it's just about ready. And then robust multi-device support. We've had multiple planning calls. It's the hardest component of what we need to do, but we're making progress on it. Royal asks if C-Tide is basically a speed improvement compared to the old algorithm. It is a speed improvement, but that's not the primary reason. So the old algorithm, SIDH, has a flaw in it that was broken a few months ago. And C-Tide is a new single isogenes implementation that doesn't have that flaw. And I think we go to Bernie.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. So I think most of you know, if not, you'll find out here that we were added to Nova Wallet. So Nova is a mobile wallet on both iOS and Android, and they are like quite big in the Polkadot and Kusama ecosystem. So they add substrate networks. So they have all the Polkadot, parachains, all of that, but they also add solo networks like ours. And this was actually achieved quite quickly because of the community engagement. So thank you everyone for that, because we just did a feature request and then we asked everyone to upvote. And I think either Aaron or CryptoWell got in touch with the founder of Nova, I think, or he got in touch with us because we just got so many upvotes. And then, yeah, they added us pretty quickly. And they actually released a very nice UI upgrade today. So if you update your apps, you will see like the design is very, very nice. And we have an avenue for further integrations here that's possible. For example, simple staking and the web wallet. You can see in the Nova wallet, they have this dApp browser thing. So they add some dApps if you ask, I think. So we can just ask them to add. But other than that, you can actually type out the web address itself. So you can go to staking.xx.network or the web wallet pages, and we will add the integrations with Nova so that you can browse within the wallet app and stake your coins in simple staking, for example, without needing to actually use a browser, which is actually great. So that's something that we can do from this. And we're also talking with a bunch of other wallets, extensions or mobile wallets as well, about adding XX network to them. So this is something that hopefully can drive adoption quite a lot. So on the web platform side, we've been working on integrating our like specific XXX network changes on the web wallet. So like all the CMIX ID stuff, all the different things we show that don't exist in Polkadot or other substrate networks with the latest Polkadot.js apps. So that's like the open source web wallet that Polkadot has for substrate-based networks. So we're basically taking that and integrating all the changes we've done over the past year so that we can have this fork of that original software and have it be open source so that anyone can improve it as well. So that's quite important. And this will also be required prior to doing the next chain runtime upgrade, because a lot of modules in Substrate have had some changes over the past year, and some of those changes break the web wallet as is right now. So we need this upgrade to go out before we can upgrade the chain. Regarding the Explorer, we are pretty much done with the version 2. So I would expect it to come out next week. And yeah, it contains a lot of nice upgrades, especially for tracking transfers. For example, right now, some people always ask if they've received a tip. They cannot see it on the Explorer, but with the new V2, you will be able to see that because it's still a transfer. So it's like a different type of transfer because it doesn't come from someone asking to transfer in coins, right? It comes from a different, let's say, what we call extrinsic, so a different action. But you will be able to track all of this in the new Explorer. And we will also have some governance information and more staking and balances information added as well, and some better charts. And yeah, on the blockchain side of things, so the actual blockchain, like I mentioned, we have a pending runtime upgrade that has a lot of updates to multiple palettes. And this has, for example, updates to the assets and the uniques palette, which can support more stable like assets and NFT functionality. So there's a bunch of assets and NFTs, like projects building on Polkadot and parachains of Polkadot. They would be able to build the same things in XX, and eventually down the road, if there's a possibility to have a bridge between XX and Kusama or XX or Polkadot or one of the parachains, that we could unlock like a connection between both ecosystems essentially. And yeah, I think that's it for me pretty much.
We just wanted to share a bit about this, and actually it'd be really cool if David, if you could talk a little bit about your world tour that you were on, you know, have a little bit of chatter between anybody that was involved with that, maybe Robbie, Jim, that would be great. So go ahead and lead out, David, if you want to.
Hey, David, let me give you like just a quick overview. David literally is like fresh off the boat. It's a 16-hour flight from Dubai, Abu Dhabi. It's 12-hour time difference. It's literally on the other side of the world from Los Angeles. So one, that's to say that we're glad and lucky to have David with us, that he's not either incoherent or asleep. And two, that, I mean, he can flesh this out, but dozens of interviews, met hundreds of people, 6 cities. So I just want to give kind of a quick overview to characterize what each thing was and what the overarching kind of goals were. Web Summit is now the largest technology show, and that kicked it off. And Web Summit is where we launched the original commercial XX Messenger. And there's just a huge number of people and media sources there. It's a sort of our consumer interface, if you will. And Zurich, was about the Swiss National Bank Tourbillon Innovation Center BIS project. And Mario Costa, who people know, who's our lead cryptographer, was there with David in Zurich. And Berlin is like a little bit like Bernie said, and Bernie and Baltazar will share a little bit more in a later slide about the linkages to Polkadot, and to the sort of Web3 and Web3 Foundation. But there's a whole group of technology implementers in Berlin and in Germany, and there's a Polkadot community there. And so Berlin was really about that. Barcelona was really about tying into democracy and the fundamental vision that David has, and that really underpins the XX network. There's a suite of tools to be a healthy human being in a modern society, in a modern democratic society. And then the fintech stuff in Abu Dhabi was really about the fact that they're well situated, regionally and geographically, but also with their financial strength to really become, and it's already happened, to become the financial center for that region, which includes, most of Africa. So, and then last but not least was just an extension, which was Dubai, which was about, money and people investing. The reason I wanted to characterize these separate cities is that the challenge for us and for David was he has to tailor his message for each venue in each city and what they're looking for. So, the reason, for example, that David talked about, CBDC and Liquidfinity and financial markets in Abu Dhabi was that was FinTech Week. So he was pitching Speakeasy, when he was talking to people and networking, but on stage, it was about that because that was the theme. We had to do that. So overall, this has been about, and it's just exactly what Will said, it's about, connecting with the outside world. In the case of, eCash 2.0 and the Turbalon project, connecting through to stable coins that are backed by central banks. In the case of Abu Dhabi, it's that, but also connecting through to maybe, Speakeasy investment. In the case of, Barcelona and Istanbul, it's about connecting through to the community. And like the Istanbul experience in connecting with the Turkish community was incredibly interesting. It's almost surreal for us. That's what this picture is. David flies in. We get in at 9 o'clock. We get to the hotel and get to sleep late. And then, David rolls into this meetup. And it is the leaders of the Turkish community, and no one's ever met face to face. It was really quite something. So anyways, that's a quick overview. David, you want to share a couple of experiences or sort of vignettes?
Well, thanks, Jim. Yeah, sure. I mean, it's so great to be here with everyone and, see all the things that are going on. And, I just have to say, it's kind of a burnout being on a trip like that, because most of the time there were at least two people with me, on average of two people, just trying to make sure I was constantly being interviewed by the media, and there was film shoots were also scheduled and in there. And it was just, from event to event. And as Jim said, every presentation was pretty much completely different and targeted. I think that the Web Summit presentation about Speakeasy went really well. That was a keynote, and there was also a panel there and so forth. And I led a thing at a private meeting, we had to go to Zurich to really get this CBDC project finalized there. It wasn't announced until after the details were sorted out there. Mario and I and actually Joe were there working this, and it was pretty intensive. And then, I also had meetings with central banks there from other countries who were coming in, because, the eCash 2 technology that they're testing out at the Bank for International Settlement joint venture with the Swiss National Bank is something that, it can be used by central banks. It can also be used as a stable coin. I mean, it's really quite an interesting technology. But the main thing I think to keep in mind about it, and what I'd like to stress is the reason I was so keen to do it. It was approved by the governors of all the central banks apparently, because it's partly funded by them. The point of it is that a CBDC can protect privacy extremely well while being highly secure against quantum computers and very scalable, and not really posing more of a danger of criminal use of payments and so on than paper money does today. And that's a very important message, because any country that issues a CBDC that claims that the reason they don't have good privacy in it is some kind of security or criminal use of payments concern, they would be revealed as telling a falsehood, because this system proves you can have all those good features in one system. So I think it's extremely important to stop the kind of spread of CBDC as a surveillance tool. So I think we should all be really proud. And don't forget, it just happens to use an XX CMIX message per coin. So that's also pretty interesting for the project. We had good meetings in Berlin, also private meetings. We hosted a dinner, was really pretty interesting. A lot of people there want to back us, and a lot of potential partnerships. And then, I gave another presentation there for the security people about quantum resistance. And then in Barcelona, we had, a couple of panels and so forth. And it was really an interesting event where we got to really speak about our voting technology and also speakeasy. And Jim mentioned Istanbul. There was also a really good, I thought, interview that was sort of started off the day there at the conference between me and the organizer of it. And in Abu Dhabi, I did speak about the CBDC and about Liquidity because it's a FinTech week, but they gave me the absolute first keynote, best spot in the whole conference. There was all these heads of state, diplomats and stuff in the front row, this huge auditorium. And for part of the reason the trip lasted like 4 weeks instead of 3 or 2.5 is because practically everywhere I went in Abu Dhabi, someone else came up to me and invited me to come over to their place and talk about how we could work together. There was so much interest there. It was, it was quite astounding. And I think, it's a really interesting place. And I'm so glad that they've oriented themselves towards, being more open to the rest of the world and trying to sort of go international. And I think you'll probably hear some good results from those ton of meetings we had there. And also, I spoke also at the Milken event and was in Abu Dhabi 3 times to speak and also attend some meetings. And a lot of just so much happening over there. It was really quite captivating. So I ended up kept extending my stay, and every time it turned out to be worthwhile. So that's pretty much it. It was. But it was a burnout of a trip, I'll tell you that. I only had 1/2 or a quarter of a day of did a little bit of free time stuff. Apart from that, I was booked solid. So it was just like the old days, I mean, it was just crazy. Yeah. So thanks. I'm glad to be home. Okay, that's it for me.
Yeah, so me and Baltazar attended Sub-Zero. So this was a conference last Monday and Tuesday in Lisbon, and it's the Polkadot and Substrate Developer Conference. So there was actually a surprise appearance by Gavin Wood. So he's the co-founder or founder of Polkadot, co-founder of Ethereum, and no one really knew he was going to give a talk, and he gave a talk about what is his vision for Polkadot and for blockchain in general and for 2023 and forward. And yeah, you can see he started up with some of those bullet points. Maybe something there seems interesting to all of us. But yeah, the hot topics that we talked about with many teams and mostly developers there was a lot of people are excited about WASM and EVM interoperability. So there's a bunch of parachains working on bringing EVM to Substrate and bringing also WASM smart contracts and how to operate between the two. So you could have smart contracts calling functions from other smart contracts completely agnostic to the virtual machine or the code that was actually used to create those contracts. So that's obviously a very nice thing. And also Snowfork. So Snowfork is going to be launched on the bridge of parachain, which is going to be on Polkadot, and it's going to be a trustless bridge between Polkadot and Ethereum. So this is, as far as I know, one of the first kinds of a trustless bridge coming online on such 2 big blockchains. And it actually uses cryptography. So hopefully it won't be susceptible to hacks like we always see whenever we talk about bridges, because there's always some party that has too much power. And so we really need trustless bridges. And leading to that, there was also another talk about light clients and more about trustless bridges. So if you can have a protocol that's very efficient, you can have a light client which can follow any blockchain with very limited information and actually if you can prove to the light client something happened on another blockchain, that's how you build that trustless bridge. So yeah, this was all very exciting, and we made some contacts with a lot of teams in the ecosystem that are working on various different things. And yeah, it's hopefully it's going to bring some nice opportunities to collaborate moving forward. So yeah.
Okay, so I believe this slide is for Will to talk about. So Will, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, so this slide is basically supposed to be covering, I think, what was a pretty recurring question, which is around how things are structured and what type of resources are being leveraged where. And I just wanted to reiterate, I believe we made this point at the first council call, but if not, I wanted to reiterate it here, that the XX Foundation is a completely separate organization from the original development organizations that originally launched the XX network. So to some degree, we moved people over to the new organization, but it is supposed to be a completely separate organization.
Yeah, I just wanted to underscore a couple of, for example, Samir lives in the Cayman Islands and is part of the XX Foundation. That might not be completely obvious, but it's true. I live in Los Angeles and I'm part of Elixxir. And if you go to the XX Foundation site, and many of the people on this call have done that, it's good when you're sharing information with, members of the community who don't participate in the council meetings and don't kind of necessarily keep track of this, but they're trying to see what the general tenor is. There really is a separation here of church and state. And again, David is a spiritual leader, but he does not control the XX Foundation. He doesn't tell them what to do. He's not a director. He doesn't own it. He doesn't. So, there's a real decentralization that's happening. And Aaron works for the foundation, and he's chairing, and leading this call. And there are members of the community who are coming in. So there's a general, an intentional decentralization that's, taking place. And I wouldn't even say slowly but surely, because I think it's happening more quickly than we realize. But sometimes, these things take a little time, but it's all kind of happening. And the XX Foundation does a pretty good job. The XX Foundation site does a pretty good job, of kind of outlining that and disclosing that for new people who want to kind of understand the lay of the land.
So, okay, looking back at kind of what I was talking about earlier, there has been a little bit of a shift of priorities, but there's still quite a few things that we're continuing to work on that we have been working on in the past. Some of those things are the KOL partnerships, which we've had good success with. And if Aaron wants to say some things about that in a little bit, be happy for him to give an update, since he's kind of, in terms of responsibilities, been the one leading the charge, getting KOLs onboarded and interfacing with them. Partnerships with wallets. This is still a major part of our strategy to get into as many wallets as possible. You saw that we partnered with Nova Wallet. We've spoken with a few other wallets, and prior to the FTX thing, we had some pretty big commitments, both on wallets and exchanges. Now, I think a lot of people are still waiting to see how the leaves fall. There's been kind of two hurdles in the past 2 months with, getting people who've committed to exchange listings and wallet listings to pull the trigger. One of them being, the FTX fallout and kind of a lot of instability in the crypto space in general. And the other being our status, or, the perception that we're a privacy coin, and that introducing regulatory risk to their platform by adopting us. We've been doing some work kind of outlining basically white paper type of work, educating these guys on, what type of privacy technologies and approaches are regulatory risky versus regulatory friendly. And, to our credit, I'd like to say we've been very focused on ensuring that all of our technology doesn't put us in a corner where we can't get adoption due to regulatory concerns. All of our technology, while preserving privacy, also allows individual platforms to perform their regulatory duties. So we are kind of in a unique space with regards to privacy platforms, in that we can provide real functional privacy to platforms users while still allowing them to fulfill their needs as regulated entities. But that's an educational process, and it's hard to educate people when there's a lot of FUD in the market. So it's a process we're still going through. It's a process I hope Samir is going to be able to help us push through. But we do have, like I said, a number of people, exchanges and wallets that have committed to listing us. And we're just waiting to get over that hurdle, which is is being held up a little bit by this FTX stuff.
Hey, Will,
other thing,
I just want to make a tie between what you just said and Turbalon and, David and Joe Hunt. By the way, Joe Hunt was part of that team. He's from Serotonin, but Joe, David, and Mario doing battle in Zurich. A lot of that has to do with this whole privacy battle. And I just want to share very quickly, David took me to one of the, I think it's maybe the largest currency printer. So they are the secure printer of currencies, for like dozens of countries around the world. They're the people who actually print the fiat cash. And I learned, this was before the coronavirus stuff. What I learned that there's something called the International Currency Association. And I learned that there's a lot of older men in pinstripe suits who believe in privacy. And the reason they believe in privacy is that real cash, first in fiat and now in digital cash, is critical to economic growth. And they believe that the societies and that and this is the job of central banks and the better part of government in healthy countries and even not in unhealthy countries is to grow the economy, to be economically successful. So put another way, there is a power struggle in the legacy world between the security people in government who are worrying about terrorism and the other branches of government who are worrying about economic growth. And they know that without true digital cash, without privacy, there will be a real hit to pay for economic growth. Always economic growth wins in the long run. But in the press and in the media and in the FUD, always the terrorism and the security apparatus wins. So there's a battle royale going on here, and it's critical to us as the XX network to win the privacy thing, to do our part. And a lot of what David has been doing is trying to make sure that people understand that privacy is a good thing when it comes to having frictionless cash and economic growth. And if we win that battle, XX Network is really in good place. And you can see it just in this discussion where Will is updating us on what's going on with exchanges. But, at the same time, Will's getting pressure and the foundation's getting pressure for exchange listings. David's winning in Zurich. So I just wanted to make that connection.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. The other big priority here, I think we're about to wrap this slide up. But the two other big priorities, as we talked about earlier, is really going to be on pushing user growth. And exchanges are absolutely essential. And we're going to continue pushing on them. But the market really has changed quite a bit. And this ties into marketing efforts as well. I think I think it was Joe Lubin. I was in a call with him recently, and he called it irrational exuberance. That was the phase we were in before, where, basically if you had a Pulse as an L1 chain or any chain in the market, all you had to do was get in front of enough eyes and you would get users and coin purchasers and adoption. That's not the market we're in right now. So while marketing is going to continue to be very important, and exchanges are going to be very important, I personally, my thesis is that's not what's going to drive success in the next 3 months. What's going to drive success in the next 3 months is to get adoption of the technology and new users into the platform, which is why we brought in Samir. And that's going to be like one of our main priorities for this next 3 months. And part of that is growing the team and really fleshing out the biz dev side of things.
Yeah, and so just touching on basically KOL partnerships, user growth, social media side of things. We do, when I say we, I mean the foundation, so several people within it. Myself, Robbie, obviously Will's working with us now. Samir is going to be. We have two very capable and willing KOLs that we currently use, that being Darren and Ryan. I would imagine most people here are familiar with them already. They've produced a lot of content, over the past 3 months. They've done a really great job in expanding essentially our brand into a whole bunch of different silos, as it were. One of the difficult things to do is to break out of silos, and they've not only done that by creating content, but also with their expertise in that area, helping to even educate people within our organization. I use that very loosely, but within the foundation to help us to understand how that all works, and they continue to do that. So really happy with them, and I look forward to working with them more. That being said, one of the things that we'll be looking to do is regular Twitter spaces. Our various KOLs will help with that. That's a big planning push that we're going to do over over this month, but really to start pushing it starting the new year. Everybody's going to be going into holidays fairly soon, so we will do what we can in the meantime. But basically the start of next year, we're going to start really pushing on live social media connections, because what we find is creating content is great, but really what you want to do is create authentic relationships in a live format. That seems to be, for instance, David going around the world is amazing, along with Jim or Robbie or other people. Going to these live conferences it's fantastic, but it's extremely taxing physically on everybody, and even financially it's more taxing than it needs to be in comparison to live social media spaces that are as good, or I would even argue better, than a lot of live events that happen at a conference. They both serve their own purpose. I think they both need to happen, but we understand that we really need to allocate more resources, whether it be personnel or otherwise, into that area, and we're planning to do so. The other thing is adding KOLs. I am actually just waiting on a few people, you know who you are, you're in here right now, to send me proposals from other KOLs. One group in particular that has been so amazing, and I will, there's many of you, but one person in particular I will just point out, and you're not the only one, and I don't want to snub anybody else who just, for a lack of time, I just want to thank Hodel Bey for all of the work that he's done in organizing the Turkish community. And like there's Jan, and there's Romera, and there's Nautilus and MyCrypto. Like there's a whole bunch of people that have been helping in the Turkish community, which has seen substantial growth over the last year. So congratulations to all of you there. And after the conference, there's been a flood of interest into the XX network in Turkey and in that whole region. So we're looking forward to getting more partnerships with KOLs in that area. So I guess that's what I'm going to leave off with in that slide, and we'll move on to the next section.
So I'm not on the foundation, but I wanted to make sure that we got the slide together, because the foundation is doing a ton of grants and work with a bunch of groups, and it hasn't been clear to the community. So I wanted to make sure that there was a list of various grants. I'm not capable of going through these and explaining them, but this is the kind of stuff that's currently being done. I did want to talk about WallXX. This is a members of the community, I think they're in this call right now, who've been working on a wallet for the XX coin. They demoed it to me about 3 weeks ago, in person actually. I was very lucky that they happened to be near me. I drove to them, and it was a great dinner. We then had a call with them yesterday, and I think the hope is that to get this community project support either through the council or through the foundation, we're still kind of working out details. I believe they actually have a demo that they can post in the council meeting chat or in a general chat, wherever, which I think would be great. This kind of community-based work, I think, is what will make this project grow, and very exciting to me, at least. I don't know if Bernie or Balthazar or Will, anyone else wants to talk, or Rick wants to put anything else on this list.
Yeah, I can talk. So Polka Assembly, Polka Stats, Dweller, those are like concluded. Dweller is running RPC node. Polka Stats is another block explorer. So the more the merrier, right? And Polka Assembly is a governance platform. So they've actually revamped their UI recently, but I think they've only released that for Polkadot and Kusama. So we're still in talks with them to keep working together. That doesn't mean that when we say concluded, it doesn't mean that we've stopped talking to them. It just means that those grants are concluded, as in they've been awarded, and we keep cooperating with these teams. And in progress, we've reached out to Unfinality, so that's another RPC provider. So this is important to have RPC diversity. So we have one node that's XX Foundation running dually right now, and we would like to add one from Unfinality as well to do web wallets. And yeah, we've also had some talks with Swipeblocks, which is a fiat on-ramp platform that can be integrated so that users can purchase XX directly with fiat. But yeah, those are like the main collaborations ongoing right now.
Maybe either Jim or David could share on those last two, or maybe even Rick on VoteXX. But I mean,
we published an eVote ID recently in October. That's what I wanted to add. But go ahead.
Oh, thanks, Rick. Yeah, I think VoteXX is just is really kind of on a breakthrough at the moment with some really important new stuff. But I guess it's a little premature to speak about it. So that's it for me on that.
Can I just, Jim, I just want to say one thing about the cash stuff. And a lot of this, it's fairly well described, at least at the first level, on the, Innovation Center BIS website and in the Washington Post, for God's sakes, But what's not made clear there, which is critical for people to understand, is that eCash 2.0, like The Swiss National Bank implementation, the Innovation Center implementation, Project Turbalon, is a subset of eCash, not the other way around. So there may and probably will be eCash 2.0 implementations, probably, in UAE, for example. I'm not saying that because it's not, that hasn't been agreed to. It's not, but that's the kind of thing that's likely to happen, kind of thing. But it makes the point that eCash 2.0 is about digital cash globally. It's not just about the Swiss National Bank. Just want to make that point. And they don't control eCash 2.0. They control the Innovation Center under the Bank of International Settlements, which is located in Zurich. They control Project Turbalon, but they don't control eCash 2.0, broadly speaking. Just want to make that conceptual point.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. I mean, it's let's be a little bit, careful what we say, but I think it's a huge stamp of approval that they decided to build this, and that shows, that speaks volumes, but it's not the only route to getting deployment of this. Technology is useful beyond BBDC as a stable coin, for example, and it has a lot of really nice features besides the quantum resistance and the privacy. It also works with various blockchains, kind of interoperable. It has proves the full extent of the issuance, in real time, and there's a number of improvements and new results related to it. So it looks like a very promising platform for kind of the Satoshi vision, in fact, of payments. So yeah, I find it pretty exciting. Thanks for that, Jim.
Right on. Okay, moving on here quick. I actually wanted to bring in FlowerTree from our council to share a little bit about community engagement opportunities. He's very good in that regard, so we just wanted to have him share from the council. FlowerTree, you want to share whenever you're ready?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Aaron. Hello, everyone, and it's good to be with you all together. I just wanted to bring the experience that I had in different projects I have been in, and the biggest challenge that any project, and in fact a new project, always faces outreach. You see that we have had amazing developments going on, and it's all being shown in the products that we are developing. And the only thing that now we need to focus from community side is basically ensuring that there is maximum outreach. David has, of course, been going out there and talking all about it, and it's really wonderful to hear everything from him. And I think it'll be very nice if somebody from team can dedicate that whenever he's visiting or going anywhere, there are enough pictures available, and you see that whatever his daily meetings are, if there is any update available, that actually creates a lot of content for relevant information on the project. Now, from the side of the community, it's really easy to build it all together on the Twitter. You see that I've been posting tweets daily for one of the other things about the project and how it is related to privacy. And I see that there are only a group of maybe 10 or 12 people who are almost liking it, retweeting it daily. So where I see the potential is that more people from the community needs to come in, and they need to probably engage when there are tweets from the official Twitter handles from XX Network, Elixxir, Speakeasy, and David's own account. And I think it's basically very easy to connect to each other by, if we start putting in our Twitter descriptions, XX Network, or use the hashtags carefully. You see, if we put all the hashtags like Speakeasy, CMix, Elixxir, eCash, and XX Network, then it will be relatively easy to find each other who are associated with the project. Then we can get into interesting conversations with each other. And that's how we can support the project from outside, from the community side. I've been lucky enough to go to 2 of the local Web3 meetings or blockchain meets, wherein different projects presented about their products and their developments. And it was really surprising that locally here nobody was aware of XX Network. So it was very, very, I felt it's very, very important that, there is local word being spread out. So since there are a lot of community members who are coming from different countries and regions, so if we can make that little effort, to attend those local meets, you can find that relevant information from meetup.com. There's a website which basically shares this information for free. So you can go to those meets, see what others are doing, and probably if you're too shy to probably talk about XX, maybe bring your experience back to us. Talk to any of your team member here, or talk to any of the council members that you've elected, or in fact reach out to me. I'm also one of the council members. So it's basically, you see that we are looking for content. So if you're willing to contribute by creating some content, it could be posts, pictures, videos, memes, then please do. And if you want our help, we have a lot of people who are willing to put forward their skills and talent to use. And if you're shy and if you do not have the right tools to develop, just pass on the idea to us, and we'll be able to put your ideas to use. And there are a lot of things that we can do otherwise, and by engaging regional influencers and key opinion leaders. Just like to take a quick moment here to tell you that we approached one of big influencers here, and we had a meeting with myself and Robbie had a meeting with the team, and the influencer did not come back to us. And luckily I met that guy in one of the meetups, and I introduced myself. He asked me, are you really from David's team? You see, the problem that we learned later was that he did not believe that somebody from David is a big name in cryptography, but he wasn't believing that somebody from David's team would ever reach out to him for establishing a connection in the country. So that's David's aura when or his position in the space where he operates and where he leads. But we need to reach out to more people to talk about what he's developing and what he has built so far. It's so great, but the only thing is that most of the audience there is basically focusing on cryptocurrency. In fact, I've been to several meetups, and 95%, more than 95% of the people are not even aware of MetaMask. So the audience we are dealing with is pretty new. There needs to be a lot of education, and that education can only happen when we use the products that we are building, and probably build upon it, communicate and advocate in very simple and very easy to understand language. So Robbie and Aaron are already doing good job on that. So please, it's a humble suggestion to everybody, and a request, in fact, to everybody, all the community members out there. Please feel free to connect if you have time. It doesn't take too much, but even if you have ideas, please speak to me, write to me, or reach out to anybody amongst us. So that's all from me. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. Okay, and I just want to let everybody know, I'll move on to the next slide here. I will make this document available for anybody that wants to look at it, obviously along with the video. So is there anything that anybody from the teams want to share, like Ben or Will or Bernie, that hasn't been shared already?
What I want to say is that this month, I think, is the month that a set of features we released for Codename Speakeasy that I think are going to be really important. And my hope is to move a lot of our conversations in the community to Speakeasy. We'll see how that goes. I'm certain there'll be growing pains. It's funny, we're using a lot internally, and like it's working, and then suddenly it breaks, and we run into a problem that's like deep somewhere in the code base that has never been seen before, and you're just like, wow. So, but yeah, I think that's the next big thing I want us to actually be discussing about this stuff on Speakeasy, and the limitation that has been admin commands. Unfortunately, in a world where there isn't moderation, sometimes some pretty yucky stuff proliferates.
Okay, I'll just open it up here. Is there any questions that anybody wants to ask in the council meeting text chat?
There was a question in council AMA questions from Steve Ubiquitous about issues of nominating and dropping rewards. We've been talking about it internally. I think I presented a proposal to Will, which is basically similar. I don't know if Will wants to take that question, so just get that out of the way.
Yeah, so as we discussed in the last call, there are a couple different approaches we could have taken, or that are opportunities for us to take here to try to make it a little more affordable or lucrative to run a node in the network, as opposed to just nominating nodes in the network. And I think we're going to go ahead and move forward with two of them. One of them being we're going to raise the maximum commission for nodes that are backed by T multipliers, and then we're going to partially reset the staking curve. I don't think we're going to do a full reset of the staking curve back to like day zero, but we're looking it's in the cards. We're just trying to decide exactly where on that curve we want to set it. We obviously don't want to just flood the market with coins. I don't think that solves anything in the long run, but it will help at this kind of rough period of time in the market to make things a little bit, increase rewards for everyone. So those are the two approaches we're going to take at this point in time. I think we're going to make the max commission change probably next week, and then we're looking at putting up a referenda to reset the staking curve either near the end of the year or like in the first week or two of the next year.
I wanted to say that one of the considerations here is that when you reset the staking curve, it's something that we can get some marketing interest off of. So, and you don't get much of those results in November and December. So, but you get a lot more from it in January. So I think the discussion we had was early January, because then we can also use it as kind of a marketing tool as well.
Yeah, it's a really important point. I think we mentioned this in the past, like just doing it in a vacuum doesn't really help the network too much. But if we can do it while we're getting a lot of attention via these partnerships we're really pushing for, then it can be quite powerful.
I guess the last question, it was actually directed at the council. I was Clueless asking about, but is there any particular quote unquote hot ideas that would be used in Speakeasy that you would want to share with the community that are not being implemented now, but that you think would be that would be a great idea in the future?
I don't know, some difficult to understand it. Can you tell me where the question is posted so I can read it?
It's in Council AMA questions. If you scroll up, that's in the community area.
Let me make it this, Jim. I just want to make a sort of comment about the sequencing. It's something that, embarrassingly enough, we all have struggled with, which is that the things, adding features that are hugely valuable to Speakeasy is really valuable when there are people on Speakeasy. So it's sort of like the Speakeasy and the social media aspect of Speakeasy has to come slightly before the actual exploitation or value-added features that it can be used for. So, for example, that's why Speakeasy is an alpha and the payments are coming. Like the actual Speakeasy and getting people on Speakeasy is one step ahead of the features, of the value-added features, and that makes sense. So, a lot of the challenge right now is making Speakeasy featured from the standpoint of group chat and social media. So admin has to come and moderation has to come before we can really have real success with payments. Because we won't get lots of people on there if we don't have, effective moderation at the group level, because everything will kind of come apart at the seams. So there's a sequencing of getting the social media stuff tuned and working right. And then, one step behind comes the kind of value-added features like payments. I just want to make that sequencing comment.
I don't have much else to say to that. I mean, I've laid every idea that I have out right now. I'm sure other people have more. But I mean, my personal development process is to get like what I think is enough and then stop thinking about it, because I need to focus on actual implementation. So I don't have anything to say, but I'm certain that there are many things to say that I haven't thought of.
Yeah, and if anybody hasn't looked, which I imagine many of you had, but if you go to the roadmap on the Speakeasy website, you can see many of the things that are planned for the future. And yeah, that's definitely a question that can be asked of the council members if they have ideas. And, technically, obviously, the question is asked to begin with, but I don't want to belabor this issue and drag on this meeting and keep everybody here. So,
and I have one high-level thing that's really short, which is that, and it goes to the whole issue of the multiplier as well. Decentralization and global community and communities across national borders is hugely important. And we are one of the few groups, organizations, communities that's dedicated to that. People in Silicon Valley and San Francisco do not need another networking group or another social chat thing, right? Global communities across, say, Turkey, the United States, Abu Dhabi, they do. So for sure, what we're doing is about decentralization and it's about global communities. And that's why the multiplier stuff is important. We are about decentralization and about global communities. We're not about centralization and national borders. I just wanted to so everything we do is influenced by that and guided by that. And that's an opportunity. It's a market opportunity to boot. It's good for the world. It's good for democracy, and there's a market opportunity there.
Right on. Okay, well, I'm going to say we're going to wrap it up. Thank you so much to everybody. This has been a great meeting. It definitely went on longer. Thanks so much, everybody, for coming, and we will talk to you again.